Thanks for waking up with us here on LBC News Breakfast. Children as young as 9 are among thousands caught taking knives into schools. Exclusive data obtained by LBC News shows a 60% increase in young people caught with a blade on school premises in the last 2 years. And that means, on average, 12 knives are found every day in schools across the country. Let's talk about this, shall we? Mark Rodney is the Chief Executive of Project Lifeline, an organisation that works to tackle youth violence. Mark, good morning to you. I tell you what made me sit up. Our exclusive report then, finding that children as young as 9 are among thousands taking knives into schools. What's going on? Why are children bringing knives into schools in the first place?
Good morning. As I've said many times, people are spending more time looking at the knife rather than the mental state of the child that's carrying the knife. I mean, who is addressing those young men that are going to school and fearing for their life because of what they see on social media? Who's addressing those guys? Nobody's addressing them. They're going to school with fear in them. So it's quite easy. And, from my point of view, it's easy to see why they would pick up a knife, and feel comfortable with carrying a knife on them. I mean, you've got children that are suffering because of trauma-driven media things, things on the media. It's simple as that. Or being subjected to conversations that they should not be involved in, from a bigger brother or from an older friend and things like that. There's many reasons why young people are carrying knives. In my opinion, the young guy that's carrying a knife in the school is not carrying that knife because they want to go and commit murder or they want to harm someone. They're carrying the knife because of fear, because they want to protect themselves. And we need to actually take these things into mind. I've been shouting to most of the authorities for a long time now, why are you spending billions on knife crime, which is building a trend, it's named knife crime, what some children are gravitating to also. But unless we deal with the children's state of mind, their fear factors, these are young children that were born into what you call knife crime. It isn't a change for them. It's something that they were born into. So we need to deal with the mental state of their mind first before you start dealing with the knife. And when we're saying to young children, put knives down, some of them now are picking up guns. So, we got to be careful what we're doing, and we have to start taking blame for some of the, the patterns, the growing patterns that we're seeing.
My goodness, guns? Where are they getting these from?
Well, wherever they're getting the guns from, whoever's giving a child a gun, God knows where their mind is. So it's happening because we're on the street. We're a trench-rooted organisation, a frontline organisation, and this is happening. A few days ago, a young man got shot, and he was on one of our watch. I was personally giving him mentoring myself, but it's happening all around, and there are young people using these things. You may not see it on the news, but it's happening.
My goodness, Mark, you really paint that stark picture there. And I understand where you're coming from, actually, just hearing you speak there in terms of the mental state of these people, for a 9-year-old to walk into school with a knife and the fear that they have on their side. So in that case, how do we deal with this then? Is it a case of schools doing more? Is there more that they could do? Who should be in this area, looking at this area?
So, firstly, I believe that, people need to stop using the same initiatives that's not working. There's so much money going into this knife crime, anti-knife crime campaign, and it's clearly not working. The data, the stats say that they're not working. So they need to start accepting the fact that the life-lived approach, the trench route approach is what these children need to listen to. They want to feel safe. They want to know how to navigate through this time, this fear, the fear of what they're seeing, what they're subjected to. And unless, people are approaching them in that manner, it's not going to work. Unless someone approaches them and, makes them feel better in themselves, show them another way out rather than carrying a knife, it's not going to work. But too often, when people are going into schools to do intervention, they're speaking about the knife, they're addressing the knife, they're telling them why not to carry a knife, but they're not telling them how to deal with the trauma.
So there needs to be more of a shift then on the person carrying the knife then? Is that what you're saying, and their mental state?
Yeah, we need to start dealing with the mental state of our young children. I mean, if we be honest, put a few adults, in a room and put someone in there with a knife. Some are going to run, some are going to hide, some are going to try to, attack the person with a knife. But eventually everyone in that room, backed in a corner, will attack because their life and because of fear. And that's adults. So why do we think any different for children? Like, these are our young children that have grown into an era that is way out of control. And if, the authorities don't start listening to the upfront, trench-rooted organizations, this thing is going to escalate to a place where there's going to be no return. And it's just not about the knife. It's the reason why they feel the need to carry the knife.
Let's talk a little bit then. Yeah. But Mark, let's talk a little bit then about the authorities, because you just mentioned the authorities there and the initiatives that you're saying need to pivot into a different direction here. So the government says that it sets an objective of halving knife crime over the course of the next decade. Does that reassure you that actually, look, the government's aware of what's happening and it's actually working to change the narrative around knife crime?
Well, it's all good for the government to say things like that. But do you think that 10-year, that 10-year span, how do you think a mother looks at that or a father looks at that who lives in an area where there's knife crime? 10 years is way too much. And I can tell you there's people out here, on the streets, adults, young adults, that have tried to attempt to deal with this situation with no support. And it's going to start by the community getting together, organising themselves and dealing with the young people around them. It's just not going to end with people that are far away from the young people that are carrying knives, don't understand what they are going through, and saying, oh, we've got 10 years that we're going to save, we're going to change knife crime. It's actually ridiculous. And in some senses, it's disrespectful to the parents that are fearing for their children's life. 10 years is way too long. And if organizations like our organization had the support, the funding, the resources as some of the bigger organizations, like VRU or, other organizations such as that, we would definitely halve knife crime way before that, because we're community led and most of our people have life lived experiences. So we can, relate to the young children and how they feel and what they're feeling. And once you can relate to them, you know how to approach them and how to deal with them, how to address their concerns. And this is not happening across boroughs. I can go into any borough and find young people that are carrying knives. I can go into any borough and find young gang-affiliated people that are getting no intervention whatsoever. And there's a lot of money going into this area where it's not hitting the right children. So unless people understand and say, well, what part do we play in it? Is it negative or is it positive? Are we reaching the right children? No, we're not. Let's help and build organizations that are. But that is not happening. It seems to be egos in the room rather than aiming at the children that are in danger. So there's a lot of issues surrounding this and they need to come to light. And over the next few months, I've always been a vocal person and I will still be vocal over the next few months in what's unfolding, because Mark, we can see it unfolding already.
Mark, I am running out of time, but I just really want to get from you, are you having any conversations at all with government? Because we're discussing this, which is great, and we're raising awareness, but something has to happen, right? So what are some of the discussions or movements that you've had with anyone in government to get your views to them in terms of changing that narrative?
Well, I can tell you that Project Lifeline is embraced by this cohort of young people in most boroughs. So right there, we've spoken to the government, we've spoken to the authorities, we've spoken to the Violence Reduction Unit. We've asked them for support to embrace the ideas of Project Lifeline, pilot some of our programs. But up to date, we have got no support from any of them, no financial support, no services, no resources, nothing. We've had empty promises. And to be honest, I would ask the question, why? I would really like to know the question why, because Project Lifeline is funded by me, directly by me. And you can imagine there's 32 boroughs and we want to be in any borough where there's knife crime. And for us to do that, we need the support from the government.
Mark, thank you very much indeed for your perspective there. That's Mark Rodney, who's Chief Executive of Project Lifeline, an organisation that works to tackle youth violence.
This is LBC News.